So this story begins in January of 1987. At that time, I was a dentist, had a private practice in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I had also been studying A Course in Miracles and Unity. And some people often ask me, wow, that's quite a jump to go from dentist to a minister or a metaphysician. And actually, it's not as big a jump as you might think, because I've gone from prescribing medication to prescribing meditation. I've gone from suggesting dental floss to mental floss. And the biggest thing is, I no longer prevent tooth decay, but I do my best to prevent truth decay, because that is our biggest problem. So, on a beautiful day in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in January of 1987, it was one of those exquisite days that you can only find in the tropics. The winds were blowing, the sun was out, there were the big, beautiful clouds, and it wasn't hot. It was just beautiful. And on that day, when I put the key in my door to my dental practice, I had no idea of what was about to transpire. And as I got my day going, within an hour or two, a patient showed up with his mother. And it was a new patient. And my practice was set up so I could basically hear what was going on in the waiting room. And I overheard the mother saying to my receptionist, I have taken my son to 10 other dentists, and none of them will treat him. And I'm wondering if Dr. Hasselbeck will. And I was glad I heard that, because it reminded me that I took an oath. And that oath was to treat anyone who came into my practice. So I greeted him. We took out the information forms. I got his medical history. And after a little while, I found out he had a really bad abscess on a molar. And so I numbed him up. I started the process of removing that tooth. And in the process of removing that tooth, I slipped with an instrument. And I didn't just slip with that instrument. I poked it into the very palm of my hand, very deeply, something that had never happened before. And in that moment, I knew my day had changed. Because friends, that young man who no one else would see was in 4th stage AIDS. And in fact, I learned later he had died 2 weeks after seeing me. And in that time, I had to wait until May to find out that I had indeed infected myself with the AIDS virus. And I wish I could tell you that I took it in stride as a good Course in Miracles student and a Unity student, but the truth is, I went into whining about it. Why me? You've probably had that happen when something bad happens in your life. We wonder, why me? What happened? We feel the victim. I was fully into victimhood. And as the saying goes, I was having some wine and cheese for maybe 3 or 4, could be 6 months. And then when I saw that first doctor, the doctor said to me, Paul, I have bad news for you. You're going to be dead in 2 years. Get your life in order. And I took a deep breath and I looked back at him and I said with conviction, Doctor, there's a greater mind than yours. And I'm going to depend on that mind. And so a journey began. It's a journey of faith, because I had a faith at that moment. It was a deep conviction that however this path unfolded, it was going to turn out okay. And again, I still had my ups and downs. And through time, I began to up my meditation practice. And I eventually came to a kind of peace, a kind of equilibrium with the idea that I might indeed die in 2 years. And I remember one day coming out of meditation, I had a thought, and that thought was wild and crazy. And it could even sound arrogant, but I was really feeling it from a deeply humble space. In that moment, I had the thought, I maybe have 2 years. Jesus did a lot in 3 years. I wonder what I can do in 2 years. And so I took a deep breath and I got up from my meditation chair and I went about my day. And during the weeks that transpired after that, I really stopped asking why, because every once in a while that would come back. And what I discovered and what I want to share with you is that why question kept me in victim consciousness. And victim consciousness is not a place of power. And friends, the Unity Teachings is all about radical self-responsibility and personal teaching. And I soon learned there was a better teaching and a better question. And that question was how? And I found out this question of how is a way to move us out of victim consciousness into a higher consciousness, maybe even accessing our spiritual beingness. And that question of how transpired like this with me. I began asking, how can I use even this to do even more of God's will? How can I use even this to be more loving? And how can I use even this to connect more with the people around me? That created such a change in me that I was pretty much getting to be on fire. And at the same time, maybe you remember this from that time frame, there were people telling me, Paul, when you meditate, imagine Pac-Man going through your body and eating up those AIDS viruses. And I did that. I tried that, friends. And every time I tried it, I felt very uncomfortable about it. And it felt violent to me. And so I had a big advantage in that my degree that I had before becoming a dentist was as a biologist. And as a biologist, I knew there was something called a symbiotic relationship. That's when two organisms can live together in perfect harmony and perfect balance, where one gets something from the other without really harming the other. So I began having a conversation with the little AIDS viruses that had moved into my body. And I've talked with them for weeks saying essentially the same thing over and over again. If you keep doing what you normally do in human bodies, you're going to kill this body and you're going to kill yourself. And I'm suggesting to you that why don't we just enter into agreement where we can be in this symbiotic relationship. You do what you need to do and live in my body, and that will allow me to live. So you get what you need, I provide it, and I get what I need, which is to live longer than 2 years. So then in 1991, in October, I had, it's hard to describe, just a very different dream than I normally had. And I had been taught in my time studying attitudinal healing with Jerry Jampolsky, which is something Jerry Jampolsky created out of his study of A Course in Miracles. And I had learned that in our dreams, we can get important messages. And I had learned how to be present, not only with my own situation, but with others sharing a similar fate. In fact, I learned how to be a facilitator for attitudinal healing groups. And I had groups exclusively in Puerto Rico with people with HIV. And in those groups, I noticed that there were people who did well with their diagnosis and people who didn't do well with their diagnosis. And what I noticed is those who didn't do well with their diagnosis, with their thoughts and their emotions, tended not to survive as long as those who did. And so I was really, really riveted in this journey, this metaphysical journey, using metaphysics to be with this thing, to be with this HIV diagnosis, to be with these HIV viruses. And while I was determined to live as long as I could, I was also still in that state of peace and tranquility if I didn't last longer than 2 years. And so that night in 1991, I had a dream. And that dream reached a point where a phrase kept repeating itself in my mind. And that phrase was a call to awaken, a call to awaken, a call to awaken. And that got to such a point that I was half awake and half asleep. And so uncharacteristically, I decided to get up and get a pad and a paper and write down. And as I laid down, I wrote down a call to awaken. So I wouldn't forget that phrase, because I had also learned that if I didn't write something like that down, if I went back to sleep and I woke up the next morning, it would be gone. So I wrote it down. And I put my head on my pillow and I started to go to sleep. And then I heard in my inner voice the call to awaken, the call to awaken. So I rolled on my side and pulled the pad and paper close to me and my pen, and I just began to write these words that were just forming in my mind. They were just arising into my awareness. And I write about this more fully in my book, my first book, The Point of Power, because that is a major point in the Unity teaching, that you and I are a point of power, an infinite point of power. And we are here to be it and express it. And I want to share with you the very end of that, because it became kind of an internal rallying cry for me. And this was a very deep mystical experience. In fact, for many years, I couldn't share this. And I'm not even sure how much I can get through this. However, I'm going to start right at the end. And I invite you to open your heart and mind. And if you're having any kind of issue in your life, I invite you to also hear this in the context of your issue, whether it's a divorce or a diagnosis of some sort, loss of job, whatever. And so this is what I heard from that voice. All things are a call to life, not a call to death. Illness is a call to life, to life, to life. Live now, my little one. Live. Truly live in me each minute and every second. All the corrections you see you want to make out there are just a mere reflection of the true change you want to make in yourself. So, my little one, each time you perceive something you wish to change, let that be a reminder that you really want to change your mind. AIDS is not a call to death, but a call to life. AIDS is not a call to take, but a call to give. AIDS is not a call to sleep, but a call to awaken. Awaken to your true potential and reality. And friends, in that time frame in 1991, I decided on my life purpose. At that point, I already knew that God doesn't give me a purpose. I realized that purpose from my innate divinity. And my purpose that I decided on that day And one of the reasons why I'm here speaking with you today, one of the reasons why I ultimately became a Unity minister is this. I am here to help people help themselves get happier. I am here to help people, help you, help others to help themselves get happier. And it's none of my business what happier is to you. What is my business is sharing with you the tools and the techniques and the metaphysical teachings I've learned over the last couple decades. Now, frankly, I don't know why some people survive a diagnosis like I got and others don't. However, I did notice that pattern. The people that handle it well, emotionally and mentally, with their thoughts and feelings, tend to do better. Those who find a purpose in their life greater than themselves tend to do better. And when I graduated and was ordained from the Unity minister, you can't even imagine the coincidence, or maybe a synchronicity. I was invited to be the minister of pastoral care and prayer for one of the largest churches in the Kansas City area. At that time, it had 1,200 members. And so my job, almost 24/7, was to be with people in their crises, in their illnesses. And I prayed with people nearly every day for their life, for health and wholeness. And friends, you can't pray a thing for another without praying it for yourself. So I know that prayer is an important step. And in Unity prayer, prayers are not about asking God to fix things and change things. It's about changing ourselves and changing how we show up in the world. And I still haven't done nearly as much as Jesus did in 3. And I'm very satisfied with what I've done up to now. So whatever your challenge, open your heart and mind to how you can use it to bless yourself and, more importantly, to bless others. Because there's absolutely nothing that can happen in your life that you cannot use for good. And the reason is because you are innately good. You are innately divine. Your divinity is inherent in you. And I charge you now to go forth. And whatever your challenge is, never think of yourself as a survivor. Think of yourself as a thriver, because that's what I am. Thank you for inviting me to be with you today.
Pray for me when things turn upside down and all seems lost, with no light to be found. There is a blessing in every breath. When you pray for me, pray for me when my heart is sinking fast and holding on to what I thought would last. Holding me up when I can't let go. I'm wrapped in love when you pray for me. Oh, pray for me I will make it through. From this place, I can't see what is true. There is a blessing in every breath, and a love that's real beyond the veil of death. Pray for me, oh, pray for me. I'll pray for you, and you'll pray for me.
Relaxing and trusting into this space that we declare sacred. This space called Unity San Jose. A space where we are loved and accepted exactly for who we are. Each of us a divine expression of the One. And as we breathe from the heart space. As we draw in closer, the loving spirit of each person here in this room. As we draw into consciousness all of those around the world, their loving spirits, each a light of love. A light of pure potentiality. A light of divine expression. So as we go into the silence, let's just continue to focus on that beautiful light of oneness that we all are. There is no separation. There is only wholeness. And let's bring our awareness to an appreciation of all things. Let's call to mind something that we're grateful for. Just one thing we're grateful for. And another thing. And another. I'm so grateful for today. I'm so grateful for the connection of this community. I'm grateful for the message, the music, the prayers, and our ability to connect in this way. And so it is.